Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Chetan here from micebook. And we've got talks today as usual on a Wednesday. Before we go on, if you can mute your microphones, unless you're Julius, that will be helpful. We are recording the session so we can put it onto our forum and turn it into a podcast later on. Objective of these talks always is to share best practice so we can recover faster and stronger. That phrase actually feels a little bit outdated because people are recovering faster and stronger and have been since last summer if they've done a good job. But always open and honest, and Julius, we appreciate your honesty on the session today. So thanks for joining us. Couple of quick micebook messages. V Awards, the early bird entry deadline is 31st of March, so next Wednesday. So if you want to get a discount on your entry, please do submit it before then. And also the Voice Forum, if you're part of the Voice Forum, please ensure you've got your image up there as well as if you can go into settings on the right-hand side of the Voice Forum and put your companies there, because that's obviously going to be very helpful just for other people to find you. That's it in terms of micebook messages. So welcome, delighted to welcome Julius. Tell us, just say hello and where you're from.
Thanks for having me, Chetan. I'm from Vegas, as you can tell by my accent. Beautiful, amazing Las Vegas, Nevada. Obviously, originally Italian, through London for a few years, where we got to meet each other. And yeah, now previously editor of Event MB, for founder and editor for 14 years now at Swapcard since a month now. So yeah, living the life.
Fantastic. So we're going to get into a little bit about your past, present and future. That's how I've kind of structured the session. Anybody else wants to know anything else, Julius has promised me he will answer any question. So pop them into chat and let's see if he does. I've got to say that you're kind of like one of our famous people in this industry, and it must be such an incredible journey. And I remember briefly talking to you. So let's start way back. Where did you study? Like which part of the world, and what did you study up to what level?
And by the way, I hope this is interesting enough for the people connected here. But if at any time you have a question like, yeah, but I have an event coming up and I want to do this, feel free to interrupt me with the story of my life. That's totally fine. I see for some people maybe relevant, from some others not. So feel free to hijack me at all times. I'll try to keep it as useful as possible for you too. I'm Italian, so I was born and raised in Italy until I was 19 or so. So I've been traveling after that to a lot of places, to Australia. I spent a couple of years there, and then to London for 8 years, back and forth from Italy, and then the US for the past 5 years. So I've been traveling quite a lot and moving my business with me. So yeah, I've been working from home for the past 10 years or so. So when the pandemic hit, that was like not a big deal in terms of change for me, here at least. Yeah, I've been studying university. I did my MBA in Australia. So that's, I guess, when I got the idea of starting a blog. I was starting online marketing, so which makes me feel super old. It was 2004. 2005, and blogs were the hot thing, kind of TikTok today. So yeah, I was obsessed by this idea that to build a business out of a blog. I mean, it took probably 4 years to do that, but eventually I made it. So yeah, that's kind of a short story of that.
So you purposely wanted to have a blog business, and at that point was events just the topic you chose, or what was the why events then? What could have been anything, right?
Totally, yeah. When people say that you can start a blog about something when you can write like 50 articles about a specific topic, and really my experience was, by that time, it was really events. I had a passion for events, and I had my first experience working with pharma congresses and stuff like that in my little region of Italy, with very limited type of exposure, but still kind of relevant enough. So, and I was very fascinated about the intersection of technology and events. I was fascinated by social media coming to events. I was starting to have my first online fights about the use of hashtags and stuff like that in 2009, 2008. I was saying, hashtags are actually going to be used at events, and people were like, this is never going to happen. Keep on dreaming. So, so that type of um, new injection of innovation. I was very upset about the way events were run as well. I thought it were extremely boring, very bottom up, and there was a lot of yeah way of doing the same things all over again. So I was fascinated also by, at the time there was kind of the rise of bar camps and on conferences. For those that who remember, was pretty big. I moved to London in 2008, and it was the thing, right? Those were the coolest events you could attend in London on a content level. So I was busy talking about those. So it was very heretical at the beginning. If you go back and read my first posts, I was just crazy, writing crazy stuff. But then I mellowed down with the years once my beard started to get gray.
So you started a blog in this sector, you were interested in it. What was always the vision to monetize through the normal media means, or did you have an outlook of how, like, you start a blog, but did you start a business or did you start a blog? What was did you have a vision? You just started? Do you see what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I started 2007, and yeah, I thought, I'm going to be rich with Google Ads. And,
Okay.
I did that and I was making like $20 a month. So I thought, yeah, this could be a thing, right? So yeah, I quickly kind of hit the reality that, it's probably going to be more difficult than what I thought. So for some time, like I tried that, and then I said, you know what, I'm just gonna keep on doing it as a hobby. I'm just gonna write whatever I want. I'm just not gonna be driven by advertising or whatever. Just gonna be focused on the content and whatever I like to write about. I've always, at the time, blogs were like really your space, right? It's not what content websites are today, which I keep on calling blogs to a certain extent, but they've evolved into almost like magazine. Like at the time, people were writing to me like, why are you writing about this? Why are you saying this? And I was like, because this is my blog. I write what I want to write about. That's what it is. So yeah, I started focusing on that until probably 2009, when I kind of was living in London. I moved to London when Lehman Brothers collapsed, like the same summer. So it was like the worst summer. And then I moved to the US when Trump got elected. So I thought, this is probably me bringing something here to countries. But it was interesting that I was looking for a job. So I kind of had to make a decision there. Like, this is not paying the bills. I need to find a regular job. And I did find a regular job as social media manager for this large B2B company in the Oxfordshire. And I worked for them for a year, and the blog, I was kind of letting it go, to be honest. There was a time where I was like, okay, I'm doing well. Probably don't need to do this. And I remember having a message from someone within the industry, Jeff Hurt, who said, don't stop doing this. Like, we need to hear your voice. And I said, okay, well, I'll try it, give it another go. So I kept on writing. And then 2011, Cvent contacted me and said, like, what do you think about running an ad on the blog? And I was like, all right, let's try it, see what happens. And then the rest is history, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. It's going to be my one question. Another question was, who was your kind of key client or turning point? Was that it?
Yeah, it was that. I had worked with, I think at the same time we started working with Eventbrite, with Cvent, like really, I had been in touch with Eventbrite since, like, they reached out to me in 2007. Like, it was like literally Julia, Kevin, and some others, the founding team, and 3-4 other people at the time. So they reached out to me very early days. And then we had Cvent on with the first ad, like the first banner ad we had on the blog. Like, it was like the whole page. It was just crazy positioning. I remember I asked for the most absurd amount of money I could think of for that, which was probably $2,000 or something like that. So yeah, I guess it was the first experiment to see is there value in that. And then that was 2011 when I actually incorporated the British Limited in where I was working, where I was living in the Oxfordshire. And yeah, baby steps. I kind of quit my job. I moved back to Italy to save money and reinvest everything in the business.
Amazing. So then, if you to look back, uh, if you were to look back over the last, was it 2007, 2009? So let's say 10 years, 10-ish years. What other key milestone kind of changed the direction of Event Manager's blog? So you got going, you started getting some clients who were paying, you quit your job. Then there would have been was there anything else that was a major milestone that kind of took it off in a new direction?
Totally. I think the first major thing that we launched that was kind of a turning point was the Event Hub Bible, which is our sort of go-to report that we've been doing for 10 years now. I think it was 2012 the first time we released it. And literally what I did for that, event apps were the new thing. It's kind of like similar to what we're living right now with virtual event platforms, right? So a million of virtual event platforms. How do you choose the best one? And the same level of confusion in terms of event apps back then. Like, what are these things? Apps were the cool thing, right? iPhone was around since like a couple of years, not even, right? So apps were the cool thing. So what I did was, what if someone could really review all the features of these event apps and someone could compare them easily? So I literally went and checked probably in excess of like 50 websites and make a list of all the features by myself, like, totally like looking at what they were saying on the website with no contact whatsoever with the companies, because they didn't even to me back in the days. So yeah, and then I created these comparison charts, and then we published it, and it was crazy numbers at the time. Like, you launch something like that, it goes would have 15,000 downloads, like crazy numbers in terms of what you compare it with today. But it was a lot of interest, and that started to project more the event technology part of the business, which has obviously been the core of the advertisers.
Did you get any upset people that said you haven't done the grid properly?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Very aggressive emails all the time. Reach out, why did you do that? And
Yeah.
I said, guys, I reached out to you. What do you want? You didn't respond to my email. Then
Yeah.
that's what it is. Now, you want me to change it? I'll change it next year when you answer to my email.
Yeah.
That was the level of conversation, and we immediately set up the new relationship that we had. I think I've become famous for not being one easy to manage on the editorial side for a lot of technology companies. I think my team as Swapcard today still hates me for stuff I pushed back in the days when I was at Event MB.
Yeah, I think my motto has always been ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I got asked that the other day. It works well for me to a certain extent. Okay, so that's it. That was an interesting. So that kind of, let's call it a product, was a kind of a catalyst, some really good, kind of a really good product you were selling, and it was working well. It was delivering value. And if you were to look back, so I'm going to kind of finish up in the past in a minute, but if you were to look back, what's your proudest moment of Event MB?
Huh. Interesting. Probably, yeah, I recently tweeted that a picture of, I think it was IMAX 2018, so 1 year before we sold to Skift, and I was the opening keynote for IMAX America. I could literally see sort of the culmination of 10 years of work coming together, and friends and a lot of people that I got to know for the years in the audience. Everybody excited, a lot of them crying for some of the content in the presentation. It was a really emotional moment. So we had a lot of, it was a special moment back then, I believe. It was a lot of people, came after that and were really excited about that and be part of the story of Event MB, because I've worked with everybody for the years. That's important to say, like everybody that has had something to say about the event industry, we've worked with them in the past 10 years by interviewing them, having them writing reports or blog posts or whatever.
Yeah, nice, nice. Um, okay, and I'm going to come to your question when we get to the future part of this section. But thank you. Do keep the questions coming. That makes this richer and relevant for you, I'm sure. Right. Let's. So it's still, I guess, the past. You sold to Skift. How much for? Jokes. And we
I
can
can
tell us
tell
if you
all
want.
of you that, but then obviously I'll need to send some killers to then take your lives. No,
Um, all right. So just tell us about.
obviously, I have 6 mansions in Las Vegas, so you can tell it was a multi-billion deal.
I'm sure it was. Um, so just when did that come about? How did it come about? What was the catalyst? What was the time period? What can you tell us about that kind of interaction and conversation all the way through to actually signing? Just give us a kind of brief history and on it.
Totally. It's funny enough. It's an interesting story. I was at IMAX in 2016, maybe, in Vegas. Here was my first IMAX. I actually came to America for the first time, um, and I was sitting at a fresh dinner. I don't know if any of you kind of remember those or have attended one of those. It's like dinners done by the Meeting Design Institute. They do it with Confex as well now, and other events. So we were there, like it was the where the cool kids would hang out at the time. So we were sitting at a table, and I had Miguel Neves next to me, obviously, who was working for IMAX at the time,
Hmm.
who introduced me to Greg Oates, who was the meetings editor for Skift at the time. He was like, "Oh, you should meet Greg Oates. Skift is so cool. You gotta get to know about them." So I met Greg, got along, kept in touch. We competed for a while. He then introduced me to Rafa when he was the CEO and founder of Skift. And yeah, we started that conversation. That conversation ended up in Skift buying EventMB. But the funny thing is that then Miguel ended up now being the editor of EventMB. So you see kind of the full circle of
Yeah.
that dinner coming together. So yeah, it's been interesting. We were actively trying to sell the business for 2 3 years back then, because honestly we reached a point where there's only so much you can do, and you grow a business to a certain stage, then either you raise funding, which is incredibly difficult in media, or you sell and become part of a bigger organization. You grow that way. So that's what we had in mind, and we worked very close to that twice with different organizations, and we were about to sign, and then the deal fell off twice, which has been probably some of the most difficult stuff I had to deal with on a professional level. Because once you're like so excited and pumped that you're going to sign the next day, and then they're like, "Oh no, we're going to pass." That's really really tough for a small business, family business. I run the business with my wife, so
Okay.
that we had all the eggs in one basket. So then we started having a conversation with Rafat, and it's very obvious how EventMB and Skift brands aligned, both in terms of operation and vision for the industry, travel, and the meetings and event industry. We were disruptors in the same way. So there was a lot of alignment, and it was made sense. It made a lot of sense, and I think it was a great investment to Skift, looking backwards at what happened and during the pandemic and the performance of EventMB for the past year and now. I think it's a great investment that they did.
Yeah, I'm sure is and will be. But just touching on the two deals that kind of didn't happen. What would you? Can you share
Wanna
why
rub
you
it
think?
in? Okay,
You can
bring it
see
on.
pretty now. You're sold. But if you were to kind of look back, can you see why it didn't happen, or do you think it's the best? Actually, in hindsight, now actually you're glad it didn't because now with Skift, or
No,
your
I'm totally
businesses.
glad it didn't, looking backwards, because, yeah, both companies that were about to sign with us, probably we wouldn't have had the same path that we had with Skift, 100% with some of them. With one of them, I think we made a mistake, with them managing, without going into details there. But, it's something that you learn. And then with the process, you got to be extremely careful about things that you do and some stuff that you say and all of that. With the other one, it was just, it just happened because of external factors. So nothing,
Yeah.
they did another mega acquisition at the time. So it just, they weren't too caught up with that. And it didn't happen for us, which we were very tiny, smaller compared to what was happening there. So, in both cases, you learn from those. It's easy to say it now, you learn from those. Really, you don't learn from those for the first 5 months, because what you get from that is just a lot of pain. Let me tell you that. The learning part starts like once you kind of overcome that.
Okay. And an interesting, and again, you don't need to answer this, when you worked through valuations of trying to sell your business, was it the typical, X of revenue type models? Did you fall into a technology kind of X times revenue model, or what could you say about that? How do you come to a valuation?
Yeah, it's tough. We work with people that have done these type of deals in the industry for a while, that helped us sort of shaping these deals. It was tough, right? Because we're media, and you have to find kind of the media valuation to a certain extent. You got to follow that. Cannot be in tech. Even if you're in tech, you're not really in tech. You don't have a recurring revenue or anything like that. You cannot base those evaluation on that. So it's kind of a value interpretation of top line, bottom line, and all of that. Whatever goes into that, I can tell you that whatever you have in mind when you start, probably you have to divide by 5.
I thought it was going to be times. Okay, I've got Ian. Ian, do you want to come off mute? He's got a question for you.
Yeah, hi, Julius. Nice to virtually meet you. I was hoping it was going to be face-to-face one day, but we haven't managed that yet. It's been COVID times. Yeah, it was just on the Skift thing, really. I was very excited when Skift bought Event MB. The question was really, first of all, what percentage of what you hoped you would achieve did you achieve because of the COVID situation, and did you get the visibility you wanted? And more on the movement forward for the future, what do you think Skift can bring to our industry in terms of visibility and highlight, and the vision of Skift having the meeting and event sector within their portfolio? Because I find that with business travel and leisure travel, it's quite a blur with Skift, and some articles are very focused on leisure and some are focused on business, and then we have the event section. I'm really interested to know where you think they could take it.
Interesting question. There's 2 parts of this. One, I'll try to answer because it's kind of like the journey for Event MB. The other questions I think are more for Rafat than for myself. But I believe that, as I said, I'm going to use what Rafat shared on social media and Twitter. I'm not going to say anything that nobody knew. It's like a secret or whatever. Event MB had the best year ever last year. It's a sad truth. It's been probably one of the most difficult years I had to deal with on a career, personal level, because the level of pain to process that year for a whole industry has been some of the most difficult thing I had to do, to kind of process whatever was happening all around us and to kind of make sense out of it for the industry. A lot of people sent me emails, hundreds of emails saying, we're losing business, I have to shut down. Like, we had to deal with a lot of pain and grief over the last year. It's probably been some of the most difficult stuff I had to do. Said that, we've been, I kind of like, it took probably a week. And I was living this dichotomy, being Italian and seeing the whole situation going south in Italy way before here in the US, right? And so I would see was coming. So that week, I remember with Italy kind of exploding, it was pretty tough, super tough. But then at the end of that week, I was like, okay, whatever, we got to do what we got to do. Let's move on and let's make sense of this. So, I started to be extremely active and proactive on what I should have done for the industry, and like start pumping. Like, I remember the first tweet I put out saying, you guys, we've got to figure out our virtual event strategy in February 2020, right? So that I was very proactive on that. That was the only way out. So obviously that paid off big time. We've seen incredible growth, right? Like the events we used to do, I remember I always say this, we used to do like a webinar with Eventbrite 2 years before. It was the most successful webinar we would have done, like shaking hands and patting ourselves on the back. We had like 1,500 people attending. We had 15,000 by March. So, you know, it was just like the growth of numbers was incredible. The attention all of a sudden was incredible. And therefore lots of responsibility, but lots of, you know, opportunity as well. So I think we played that card very well while I was there. Was it what I expected? Absolutely not, because that meant that I had to be a business owner again to a certain extent. While it wasn't my business, but I kind of had to think that way last year. But you know, not a big deal. We did it and we had a lot of success. Then what happens to Eventim from now onwards? I feel that with Miguel on board, you know, there's a lot of continuity in terms of the value that Eventim will provide to the event planning community, because Miguel is someone that is deeply rooted in the event profs community, and it's someone that, you know, a lot of people look up to and has a lot of relationships. So I'm very happy that happened, that Miguel is in. You know, obviously recommended Miguel, you know, internally, and said, you got to get Miguel, this is going to work. So I've been in the background of that, you know, without taking any merits, but I really wanted him to be there for the prosecution. Then what happens with Skift and Eventim? You know, I know Rafat is very committed to events. He likes meetings and events. He understands it. It's part of Skift business. It's a huge part of Skift business, events. So there's a sort of a pure survival need there for Skift to be at the top of what they're doing in events. There's not only like a topic interest, right? More closed than travel in itself to a certain extent, like the meetings part. It's a big part of Skift's business. So yeah, I don't know what the future will hold for that, but I'm confident that Miguel is going to do a terrific job for sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Richard, you've got a question about valuation. Do you want to come on and ask it? May have been asked and answered.
Hi, Chet. Yeah, hi, Julius.
Hey, Richard.
Congratulations, my friend. Well done.
Good to see
no,
you.
it's just like, you know, you're kind of talking about the valuation. I think you're absolutely right. You know, you can't say, well, it's a multiple of this, a multiple of that. But at the end of the day, there are key components of your business that were of value to Skift, and that's kind of what they made the assumption of the valuation around. Now, the model was created. So what were those valuations? I'm guessing one is your database.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. Well, database, like I thought, you know, I can tell you this, I thought that coming into this process and pitching the business to multiple different clients, that database was a big deal. And we had the biggest database in the industry, by all means. I built that for the years. And I thought, you know, this is what we're going to sell. But people like weren't interested in that. Not as much as I was expecting them. They were more interested in getting us, myself, my wife, and the team on board. It's more about the team than you know, your assets, because your assets, like when you control them, it's one thing, unless they're extremely tangible and, you know, extremely, that's like the value we all agree on, right? So I thought, like, I was like, database, right? It's gotta be database. They were like, no, this is not what it's all about. So eventually you look at revenue, you look at EBITDA and all of that, and how it plays out, and you add a multiple, you try to agree over fights over a multiple. That's what happens. And then, you know, you start looking at the deal, what it looks like, the structure of the deal, like earnouts and all of that. If there are stuff like those happening, or, you know, how long do you need to stick around? What is the compensation? Like all these, you know, aspects that fall in every deal. And, you know, if it makes sense for both parties, you move along.
Okay, but you said, so when you talk about database, or what I would say, you know, database basically are people, and that's your community.
Yeah.
And you know, the community and the, you know, the value you bring to that community, and you can draw them with you. So there surely has to be a value to be able to sort of put on the brand
I
relation.
totally agree, Richard. I totally agree. I was telling them the same things, but
They
it
were
didn't catch on. Like, nobody.
You're talking to an accountant there.
There's a value to this. Like I built this, like, you know, even in the lead up to sale, I was like, okay, what can I build that it's not depending on me being there, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to sell a business, like, do you have to think what happens if Julius goes away, right? And you have to build some assets that are going to be valuable to people regardless of whether you're involved or not. So I really focus on building that database, saying, you know, this is what is going to be at the core of what we sell. And I was like, I did a fantastic presentation. You know, I'm a keynote. I did an amazing pitch. Nobody bought it, but nobody bought it.
It's like they say, sorry, when monopolizing, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It depends on what they.
Yeah. Probably, Richard, I should have talked to you. You would have helped me to pitch it better.
Okay, let's move on to, we're going to run out of time otherwise. Let's move on to present. So now at Swapcard, tell us about that journey and how was the conversations with Swapcard? How did it come about? What attracted you to go, I guess, into the do, as it were? Yeah, tell us.
So I have, you know, it's a mix of personal reasons why, you know, I moved into Swapcards as well, but there's also a bit, some professional, obviously, reasons in there as well. You know, I got to one of my best industry friends is Matthew Donegan Ryan, who sold multiple businesses. Like he's probably one of the most accomplished entrepreneurs in the event technology sphere. He sold Crowd Compass to Cvent. He sold, you know, another company to Cvent back in the time, registration companies. You know, he sold multiple businesses. And he is the general manager of Swapcard in the US. And, you know, we're friends, and he was telling me about how great the company was doing and all of that. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then, you know, I guess over, you know, we started, I just said, you know, I said, whatever, we'll have a chat. I had a chat with the CEO, with Baptiste Boulard, you know, French company. I was like, to be honest, I was like, yeah, I'll have this chat, but I don't have high expectation. I don't think this is going to happen, honestly. But then I had a chat with Baptiste and was extremely impressed with his vision and, you know, where he's taking the company, and also with the progression as Swapcard is having. Like, you know, they grew 400% in a year, and they're working with South by Southwest. And, you know, we're just announcing next week a deal with Informa for all of their events for 2021, right? We just announced the deal with IMAX. So, you know, we're working with these incredible clients. You know, they're really, there's no hype in that. There's a lot of reality in a sense of how you deliver this business to people that work with business events, right? Rather than whatever is happening right now that everything is hyped about. So there's a lot of continuity in that. I was really excited about that. So yeah, one thing led to another, and some personal reasons sort of came in as well. And so the decision seemed right as well. I feel that we had to make this move, and then that's what happened.
And it was all almost one day after the next day. So was that all kind of planned, that that's the day it will be announced, and then the next day you'll start? Is it that was all pre-planned?
It was important to have a transition with Skift and not to leave overnight. So, you know, we've been planning that. It's been super tough to plan that, because obviously Skift is family to me, and it's been incredibly difficult to plan that, to communicate that, to implement that. But at the same time, you know, we did our last event with EventMB on February 12th, and then I joined Swapcard, and we had Evolve, which was the biggest event of the year for Swapcard, with like 10,000 people on the platform the next week. So it's been quite a lot during those February period, but, you know, very exciting.
So tell us about the IMEX announcement today. Tell us what that's going to mean for an event planner. What are they going to benefit from?
Yeah, I mean, this is about keeping it real. You know, I feel that, you know, there's a lot of hype about virtual events. There's a lot of hype about, you know, whatever is next, and nobody is going to go back to work, and we're living a new normal and whatever. And then there's the business events community, and we know who we are, right? we look at each other and we're like, we go way back. We go to 2012, having drinks at the Palazzo here in Las Vegas, whatever. Like whatever newcomer, has to deal with 10, 15 years of relationships that have been built through technology and without technology, with destinations and venues. So I'm a fan of that community. So to me, the first thing I did when I joined Swapcard was to talk to Karina and say, I don't care, like IMEX is going to be on Swapcard. I'll do whatever it takes to have IMEX on Swapcard, because this is the community I believe in. This is like the events that need to happen on Swapcard are the real business events. Then we'll leave all the glitzy and whatever else to the others. And then we'll see once we go back to live what happens, because that's what I'm excited about. Especially with Swapcard, because we come from the live industry. We don't come from virtual or whatever. So I'm very excited. The first time 100% virtual event tool has to check in 100,000 people on the show floor. I want to see that happening. I cannot wait for that, because that's I'm like with Swapcard, I'm like, bring it on. That's what I'm looking for. With some others, I have some doubts. So we'll see. So for me, this deal means bringing it back to the real community of event planners, like really going forward with the community. We all know each other and keep growing that community, which I'm interested in. The noise and whatever else is happening, is gonna sort of self-deflate in a few months.
And so when you say have IMEX on Swapcard, what does that mean? Like if I'm attending...
yeah, it means that IMEX is, they're obviously canceled IMEX Frankfurt, which is the big show happening in May, the in-person version of that. And they announced the 5 months activation on the lead up to IMEX America here in Las Vegas in November for the first time at Mandalay Bay, which is going to be very, very interesting to see coming together. They moved from Sands to that. So yeah, those 5 months, all the activations, all the events that they plan to do are going to be on Swapcard. So they're going to be hosted there. And, we're really building this concept of community. And it's amazing to see how Karina immediately kind of was excited about the concept of building up a long-lasting community on the platform for a few months with different activations, whether they're webinars or full-fledged 3-4 hour events. So IMEX is going to announce all of that. So I don't want to spoil any of it, but there's a lot of stuff that is going to happen on the platform, and people will know that that's the go-to place where they can still hang out with their community, regardless of whether an event is happening or not. So yeah, that's a future vision of how shows are also transitioning with the digital footprint as well.
Yeah, okay. So just interestingly, you mentioned IMEX in America, Vegas. Well, what is happening in Nevada and the state, and how is the numbers and the outlook and the vaccination program? How is the states coping currently? Because clearly it wasn't that great last year. Is it getting better? Is things improving? Are you feeling confident?
I'm no expert. I can just give you my opinion on it, obviously, which for whatever counts. It seems like in the past couple of weeks, we've seen a total switch. Even here, well, obviously there's Texas and Florida, they do whatever they want, right? You just open and whatever, you've seen the images from spring break and all of that. So you know what's happening there. But here in Nevada, we've had a Democratic governor that it's kind of not been as strict as in California to a certain extent, but it's been pretty, strict with some rules and, closing down gatherings, even if, they were happening in Orlando, they've been happening through the whole time in Florida. He's been battling a lot of pressure from casinos to reopen. So he's been containing that. But then again, obviously vaccination has sped up. Now they announced that everybody can book vaccination by the first week of April, everybody. So regardless of age, so everybody's going to be able to book it and have it by May, which is quite aggressive, right? So with that and with the numbers, like we've been at the peak with 4,000 cases a day, we have 200 now, right? It's just to give you the scale. So there's a sense here, you go to casinos and you see everybody's back at casinos, like especially on the leisure sort of consumer portion of it. Everybody's back to Vegas. You know, there was an article yesterday on the Daily Mail, you know, amazing British publication, was saying, you know, everybody's spending their stimulus check in Vegas, like, you know, going up big time. And they announced 50% capacity for large gatherings, right? Which means thousands of people here in Las Vegas for some shows, right? So yeah, I mean, it seems like it's picking up, like the rhythm is like going. I wasn't expecting it to go in this fast, but it's going super fast. I can tell you that. I see an announcement of shows happening in Vegas every day now, like confirmed. So yeah, it seems like everybody's back up, you know, but we don't know what is going to happen, right? We don't know whether this is going to be enough in terms of the vaccination to really contain a fourth, fifth wave, whatever we're at in the US.
Okay, so let's thank you for that. Let's talk about future. Yin, do you want to come in and ask your question that you posted in the chat?
Yeah, so basically, it's great to have you at Swapcard, Julius, because we use Swapcard, so that's always a good thing. But I kind of want to just, you know, see your thoughts on the disruption now that we've sort of been in virtual for 12 months. Like everybody who wasn't virtually sort of minded have gone, we need to do something to keep the audience, keep the community around. How are you seeing sort of event managers keeping that attention? Because we're finding that content is great. If you've got good content, it's great having that element. How do you keep them around for everything else that you want them there for? You know, the networking side of things, or networking virtually, because obviously everything's still very different. Have you seen anything that's out there that's like, one to watch, guys, keep an eye on this? But yeah, just wanted to know your thoughts, really.
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. And I feel that we don't need any new features. We don't need anything new. We have all the tools that we need. We need better tools. You know, we need better and improved tools that do existing things that we already currently have in the portfolio. I'm even looking at a Volio, as you mentioned, our registration tool and our tool. I'm sitting in demos. I'm like, oh my God, can you really do this level of stuff? Like, you know, changing the micro thing about the registration that then will end up in the like, you can be extremely specific about the user experience today. We don't need more than that. Honestly, there's way too much. I see that probably clients use 10-15% of what we currently have, you know, available in terms of features, to be honest. Like, I'm working with my team to make sure that we communicate very well what you can do with a platform right now, which is a missing piece right now. A lot of people don't understand it. But let me tell you something that I'm seeing right now that I think is the next challenge, right? Everybody's been focused on content as a result of the pandemic. So the first natural pivot has been, let's focus on keynotes and translating the model of in-person events to virtual with some variation, right? So we've learned through the year that, you know, probably an hour-long keynote doesn't work in a virtual environment. So we probably have to shorten it, you know, so we started to learn all of that, great. But the focus on setting your speakers up and having these amazing speakers and a keynote kind of stuck to a certain extent. So what's next based on that? We got to think what's next. Why? Because there's a million virtual events happening. The same speakers, like even the event industry, I see the same faces like go over from one virtual event from the other, right? They see it's the same trail. Like there's only so many speakers available. There's only so much you can do. All of a sudden, you're putting together a content show, you know, where you're showing this TV experience, where you're showing people with some level of chats and polls. Great, but you're competing with Netflix really in terms of attention. I'm really like, why should I watch your event, or should I watch Netflix or YouTube video if you're just projecting content? I can comment on YouTube as well. I can have fun in the comment sections. Like I just go for comments sometimes. I don't even care about the video. So what I'd say is, like, we got to get out of that competition. Like, what's the blue ocean? If you pass me the comparison there with the book, you know, the blue ocean strategy, like where do you really open a new market. The new market is really the live component, the co-created component of events. So if we really did, that's why everybody's so concerned with engagement. But what we really mean is like getting people to involved in the event more than just watching some level of content, right? So for me, like features that are becoming extremely needed in that sense is, you know, I see the lights in demos whenever I do it with clients when we pitch, for example, the roundtable features that we have or the breakout features in any platform. This is not Swapcard specific, but any platform that has group meetings of 50, 100 people with some level of moderation a la Clubhouse. That's where the you know, next level is, because you can have your keynote, but then people automatically get split in breakouts. You have moderators moderating those and having some level of one-to-one conversation where people start getting on stage. You promote, demote. You can have it audio only. You know, that's exciting as well. So that's the new way to create that engagement for me. Like that's the only way probably to be different from a YouTube video, getting people live on board and get them to create something together. That's what I'm excited about. And then obviously you got to use tools like artificial intelligence to make sense of the noise, right? Especially when there's like 5,000, 10,000 people on a platform. How do you filter what's relevant to you? That's where the platform has to step in. So any platform, not only Swapcard, that has artificial intelligence, you should invest in that, because you know, really that helps the experience getting better on a platform level. This is something that you cannot do as a planner. So if you combine all of that and you create a year-long sort of touch point strategy with virtual, in-person, and hybrid, then you're onto something, because all of a sudden you're owning your audience, right? The audience is yours. You're not on Facebook, on Twitter, or Clubhouse. It's just on your platform, and it's yours to have and engage with.
Thank you. Jens, does that answer your question? Any follow-up?
Yeah, it does. I think the interesting thing to see is, because we were actually with Swapcard since 2018, so we used them way back when event apps weren't cool and people didn't really use them, because my audience is not the type to sort of engage in gamification. So that's why this whole conversation about getting people involved and getting them to see the content but be part of the content as well is quite important. And so just trying to match that up and marry it up is something, you know, something interesting to know, and you know, keep it simple but do it right and do it to a T, so it's there, so it's easy that people don't even realize, which I think, yeah, which makes sense. But the you mentioned the roundtables and the moderation of 50 people. That yeah, interested to see that coming on board, because that's something that is where we're struggling, I think, for the 50 person. I'm going to go on mute now.
A story of our life. Don't worry. I mean, we all have it. But yeah, no, that's coming together. That's the next big thing.
You mentioned Clubhouse, and I had a question here. Well, where do you see? I think Clubhouse as a platform is fantastic, and it's got a great way to communicate, a different way. But where do you see it for our industry? How do you see it being effectively used, if at all?
Yeah, I'm pretty realistic and somewhat dry when it gets to our industry and the use of these tools. I think everybody's excited about Swapcard because for the first time, they're seeing some movement on the social media activity they usually do, and there's no response to it. Let's be honest, it's just like that, right? They're seeing like some people getting in touch for the first time after sharing 1 million messages on Instagram with 1 like. And everybody's all excited about Clubhouse because it's finally they're having some results with their weak social media campaigns. I mean, that's the sad reality of it. I mean, let's not say it's something that is not in terms of the industry interest with it. Then you can build like great communication. But you know, we're in lockdown, right? Germany, very popular in Germany, very popular in the UK. Yes, we're everybody's at home, like not going anywhere, right? What can you do, right? You're spending time talking to people on your phone. That's what you're doing, right? So long-term potential of that, I don't know. I mean, as long as the platform will keep on giving organic marketing opportunity, everybody's going to be excited about it because they're getting something out of it in terms of marketing. That's the only reason why some people are excited about it right now, because the platform is still young enough to give you that. I was hyped about Twitter in 2009 because all of a sudden I was connected to Chris Brogan and it was like talking to me, right? It was the most exciting thing ever, but then that went away, right? And then you have to deal with the platform as it evolves. So once they start to have 1 million people, 2 million people, I was chatting on Clubhouse in August with top VCs in the chat. I was like shaking while I was talking. This is these incredible names. Then all of a sudden I saw a wave of 1 million users coming in a few months ago, and that was lost. That was gone forever. So, you know what I mean? Like that natural evolution of social media platforms. What's left, I believe, for the event industry is really this use of audio to connect attendees. And I see it as a kind of a white space that you can provide to attendees to connect in a different way than video on, always video on, kind of stay on all the time, as a casual way of interacting as part of virtual events. Absolutely. I was discussing this with Jeremiah Ouyang in May, when we did our Future of Events industry event, an event MB, and we were talking about the use of audio during in-person events where people can just walk through the hallways and just connect to a chat room that is happening audio only in the virtual part of the hybrid event, right? And now platforms, we're not the only ones. There's a lot of platforms that are now offering audio only features within the platform itself. So that's the potential for me to not connect with video necessarily, but just drop in casual conversations around events.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got? We've got only a few minutes left. So anyone's got any other final questions? Do post them in the chat. I've got. So you're very kindly have agreed to be a judge on our V Awards. Very grateful. What would make you just go, oh my God, that's just so shit? Why did you enter that? Well, what's going to be a real, like, just don't bother advice if you're going to do that? And on the flip side, what are you hoping to see?
So what do I think is so bad in terms of submission, you mean? Like,
well,
in terms
yeah,
of
so it's a whole new world, right, that we've entered in, and we're looking for the best in class that's really demonstrated some great engagement, of course, and many other things. I can just see some entries coming in where you're just going to go, why did you bother? So what would that key, why did you bother, don't bother unless, type message? Does that make sense?
I can tell you this, I'm still waiting to be convinced by someone. So please convince me, pitch me, like change my mind about avatars. I feel Second Life had its run in 2009, and that's it. We don't need another Second Life. I think we all agreed on it until sexual predators went on Second Life. Like, why do we need this? Like, it's just bringing so many bad memories to me. So if you find, I had an interesting conversation with Garrett Hykop on that. He said he had an amazing experience with avatars. It's like, well, right, I've never had one, but I'm willing to be convinced about it. But to me, it feels so awkward, still very awkward, that this is not what people want when we're talking about virtual events, right? So I don't know, convince me otherwise. I mean, if they're building something extremely new and they're really being creative with it, I'm willing to be convinced. For the time being, I'm gonna have a lot of prejudice on it, a lot of prejudice. Like, I'm talking about years of prejudice that you have to fight with your pitch. So that's going to be tough. But then I'm open to see creativity. Then who's winning? Who's winning is really those that are not really presenting a platform as their creative effort. The platform is not your creative effort. Like, yeah, and we used matchmaking and artificial intelligence to do this. No, you didn't do that. The platform did that, right? You design an event on virtual as an event planner. So I'm very excited about to see the creativity of using platforms creatively to really bring new concepts on board, like new ways of doing things. That's what I'm always excited about. I'm always like, wow, you're really not just doing a keynote because you have to have a keynote, but you're doing, I don't know, whatever crazy session format you thought about. It probably didn't go as planned, but you tried. So I'm always a fan of that.
Yeah, cool. I've got two last questions. Let's do the quick one first. Is there any books you'd recommend? Just that was a random one that I wanted to ask you. And I might have to give you time to think about that because it's always a hard one.
Is there any books I recommend? Oh God. Yes, I recommend not to read any business books these days. Just read whatever, any something that is not related to disconnect, because we don't need any more business knowledge, business intelligence. For those people that are working right now, I mean, honestly, you probably, there's two facets of this. There's people that are out of work. It's extremely sad. And there's people that are working twice as much. There's no middle ground these days, right? It's either that or the other. So just take a break. That's what I can say. Just take a break. Just read something that is like stupid and unrelated.
Good. Okay, final question. I've got a couple of minutes. So my take on this last year is that event agencies, whilst many have had to go through very tough times, actually we're probably could be in one of the best positions as event agencies in its traditional sense than we've ever been in terms of the marketing mix and the profile of the event agency with clients. So finally, they're at the top table, strategic decision making, brought in much earlier in the process, working as true consultants to deliver the challenges that the clients have given. And this, I think, is a watershed moment, something that the agencies can really sort of finally be as beneficial and as impactful as a PR agency or an advertising agency or any of those that are very well respected and always have a seat at the top table and charge the proper fees. Do you agree? Do you see this as an incredible opportunity for event agencies to put their stamp on this world? What's your advice to them? What do you think?
So I know we've talked about a lot about selling businesses, investing in businesses and stuff like that. I think now is the time to buy shares in event agencies, and those that managed to stay afloat and didn't have to shut down, unfortunately. I think those that are sticking around, that's the biggest potential for investment that you'll ever see in the next few years, because there's a completely changed marketplace or, opportunity to gain market share. You never had that opportunity. Like, you had those roles, those, household names that always have been delivered. Like, that's all gone. That's all gone. Now it's all up for grabs in terms of who wins who. So there's a massive opportunity there to be strongly positioned on innovation and digital, to be honest. Like, those companies that are able to do that, they can buy into the crazy valuations that we're seeing on the virtual event technology side of things, that crazy wave of investments that is coming in. You can get a piece of the pie of that as an agency if you're very strongly positioned on virtual events and digital events and hybrid events and whatever digital component we attach to live events going forward, right? So that's the massive opportunity. It's a massive opportunity that may materialize in the next 3 years. So if you're hungry for money now, it's not going to pay you back in the next month or so. Though I'm seeing a lot of people out of nowhere making millions right now with virtual events, like millions, literally pushing incredible job, that really didn't have business in March, like zero. They lost all their clients. They're doing amazingly well now because they were like super fast to pivot and built their core clients right now. To a certain extent, this is what we're experiencing with Swapcard right now, right? Crazy contracts that you would just say, yeah, never gonna happen, like probably years ago, now are happening because we were like super fast pivot. And then obviously that's going to translate to in-person businesses later on, we hope. Yeah,
we do. Lovely. Julius, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the getting up early. I don't think you've been up earlier than us anyway. Really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for joining. We will post on our forum what the next talks are, but have a great week. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks for having me.